Hi, welcome to the Overcoming Your Story podcast. Today, our guest is Tatiana Mangui. I'm very excited to have this conversation with her. Tatiana, please, can you tell us where you're calling from and introduce yourself in your own words?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Tatiana Mangui. As was said earlier, I live in Washington, D.C., and I am 34 years old in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
In 2 days, I'll be getting 1 more years. So currently, I'm a food photographer, and I'm also working on, building my my website, and as well also working on starting a flavor simple syrup company, so that we can promote African juices recipe, but we're starting off in syrup. So that's what's going on in my life right now.
Oh, wow. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this conversation, I had the idea or the wish to invite you when I heard you in a clubhouse room, when in a Cameroon Connect room on Clubhouse, where we were talking about many things and about our childhood. So can you tell us how you grew up? And
Of my upbringing. So I was born in Cameroon, but I think I stayed in Cameroon to the age of 9. And then from there, I left Cameroon, not with my mother. I left Cameroon with my aunt. And we just kind of country hop, whether it's from Italy, Spain, and then we finally settled in France. So just in a nutshell, a little bit how my life has been going since my home country from Cameroon, and from there I somehow thought, it's not enough to move around, and I moved from France to come, during my adulthood, to come to the United States.
Yeah, that's very that's a lot of moving around. I also recognize that pattern that when you're younger, you're moved around, and then when you're older, you start moving yourself around, right?
You perpetrate the habit.
Yeah. I did the same. I was moved to Switzerland from Cameroon, and then I moved my kids, and we all moved to Canada. So, so growing up, how did you see the world? Did you feel safe? Did you feel hopeful? Did you feel you understood the world around you? You understood the adults who were raising you?
So it's a weird feeling, because I felt safe in the world. Like, I didn't feel I was in danger or anything like that. Never. I felt safe, but I grew up in a lot of unknown environments. Like, think about it. You're a child in Cameroon. You see your mom, dad. Everybody's face is familiar. The environment is familiar. You grow up, kind of different. Even though my family are pretty strict, like most African parents, and they're Catholic, and they're like by the books kind of lifestyle, even though they are not by the books. So that's not bad. And so I a lot of changes. So I think I spent more time trying to adapt and adjust than actually really taking time to understand the environment in which I was. So it was always that I was always in mode of adapting, adjusting, trying to meet the standards, of my family in terms of my upbringing, and in different environments. So I think I spent most of my life I was just going through things, and I don't think I really, savored, enjoyed the way I should have as a child. I think for me, I was already an adult. Being a child, it was not really a concept that, that once we left Cameroon, it was just right behind the door. You had to be I felt like I had to be an adult. I had to be disciplined, learn fast, learn languages, perform in school just the way I was performing in Cameroon. The expectations were high, so I had to grow up really fast. So I can't say now. I learned a lot in hindsight. There are a lot of things that are really great that I took out of this experience that were great. For example, I can speak multiple languages. If you had asked me now as a teenager to learn, I'm gonna look at you like, I'm not doing that. But being forced to go through those things, I've learned and matured quickly. It's a good thing, but I paid the price as an adult later on, because I matured so fast that I became completely inadequate as an adult in my environment. So.
Just pausing there. How old were you when you left Cameroon?
I was probably 9, going 10, something like that. Yeah.
That's very young. And you left your parents in Cameroon and you moved abroad.
Yeah, my parents moved with me. I moved with my aunt, who's a great person. But I know, she didn't have a child herself. So I was like her first child, and she had to raise me and learn certain things as well on the go. She did her best. I mean, I come in as a woman who takes on a child and has to, fulfill her own dreams and take care of me in a different world, different system. So she had her challenges, but as a child, you don't understand those things. You just see that, Um, over the years, in the beginning, as I grew, in the beginning, it wasn't hard because I was just like mesmerized. Right here, there's so much, there's this, there's that. I want, there's so much going on. But I think it started when we moved to France finally and we're settling in. My aunt had she met her husband in Spain and he was French. And then they moved. We decided to move to France, and Toulouse was where we settled. And that stability a little bit, even though it was a struggle. Because funny fact, I'm from the English side of Cameroon, and I grew up in the French side. From the English side of Cameroon, but my French was terrible because even when we moved even when I was in Douala, everything was in English. My schooling was in English. I wasn't, the only time I actually really heard French was in the family. So when I was during vacations when you get to hang out. But so I moved to France. I was like, okay, I've heard French before, and I hear my mom that it was a completely different story when going. Yeah, having some stability and just going through school, and trying to adjust and adapt. Then it hit me. That's when it started to hit me that I hadn't seen my mom, my parents below, my grandparents, because the people that actually raised me are my grandparents, my late aunts. My mom was always around, but she traveled a lot for work. She would go out of the country, go I don't know XYZ, and come back at home, and then she would stay for a couple of months, and then I was in school or I wasn't. It was just she's always been a present figure, but I never spent a lot of time with her, like a lot as a kid. So my grandparents, my aunts passed away. The one who I really adored, like I was like, oh, she's my favorite person. She passed from cancer. So it started to hit me that the people, the environment that I liked, that I loved, was not there. So it got to the point where
so sorry.
My personality started changing. It was spending time in the room just crying and not understanding, why. And then, how African parents do things. My aunt was really great. One thing I'll take away from my aunt is that she didn't spank. There was no spank. It's not even a thing in our family. I can count the rare times I've been spanked, and there was something that triggered it, and probably not me for the most part, but something triggered it. But we're not spankers in the family, which is for African families it's something.
I think I don't know. It's the first time I'm hearing that, and I'm happy.
My parents tried to avoid. Spanking is the last solution to some situation. And so I went through that. She always tried to explain things to me. But again, you're explaining something to a child that doesn't have the ability to understand or make, or I don't even know that it's not. Is that she? I think she understood that it was hard. But again, with our mentality in Africa, it's just like just get over it kind of situation where they do this thing where it's like, okay, we understand it, just get over it, because that's how they were brought up. It's hard. Yeah. Get over it. Like, cry for about 2 seconds, but move on. And so there's that piece. And as I was changing, think about it. You're at situations where my aunt was just overwhelming me, and for good or bad. And she would call back home, trying to see if someone could talk to me, so that I could change my behavior, I could be different, without realizing that was more traumatizing for me, because I took it as a disappointment. Because my grandmother would call, and she would tell me things like, I don't remember you like that. You were this kid who loved this and that, was going on. And, it's like, you all that guilt, all that, so I felt like I did something wrong all the time.
Yeah,
and I was like, what have I done? It's kind of depressive. Yeah. I think I didn't understand what it was, but I think I was depressed, falling depression without even knowing that that's what depression was.
Yes, because going through that as a child, you don't have the words to even label what you're going through, and it's a lot. It's a lot because no one. I'm assuming no one explained to you. You're going. I think you said it in the room that you're going to Europe for long-term stay.
Yes, it was just like, I was happy. I was like, I saw my mom traveling all the time, so I was like, oh yes, I'm going. It's my turn. I'm gonna go see the world. And no, it was definite.
For a child, that's a big deal, right? It's something else when you think you're just going to visit, and then actually you go for years.
It was rough
without seeing your parents.
It was rough, and even when my mom came and visit, it was just passing by. And that really hurt my feelings. So I was like, finally, you're here, and all you can give me is 2 days or 3 days, something like that, because she was traveling also for business. So it just so happened that she was traveling. She had to stop in France. I was like, how do you do that? Like, But I just shut it down. I never complained. I never said anything. And my mom, she just, I don't know. I would never. Well, she talks to me now. She explains a lot of things now, but it is what it is. So that was just kind of how the situation. Everybody just accepted it as it is what it is, and we will move on. So
Yeah. And I think you also mentioned that at one point your auntie had a family of her own. And so you became kind of a big sister, a responsible big sister.
Yeah, she had her sons. Yeah, she had. I think I was 13, 14. Yeah, I'm so lost now my time frame, but I was already a teenager. I know, and she had her first child, her first boy. She has two boys, and her husband traveled a lot. He was he had his business. He traveled a lot for his business, so we didn't see him. Not as much as a normal parent would be around. And even when he was in France, he had to go around the country again for work. So I kind of stepped in some ways. I became the other parent. And I resented that. And I think at the beginning, my aunt thought I hated her kids. And it wasn't that.
In which ways did you step in?
I helped around the house, which we already do. But, if she had to go to the doctors, I went with her. Little things like that, if when her children, her first child was born, it was to the point where they left me with a kid, knowing that even as a teenager, I had it on. Like, they could go dinner, they could do things. To be honest, I did not mind that. I did not mind that piece. I did not mind that part because, again, if you're born in an African family, that's part of your duty as a child in the house to help with other stuff. And if there are siblings behind you that young, you step in for your parents in some way and maybe do those things. I didn't mind that. But if you're a teenager, you're in this family, they have their own kids. They're together. Mom and dad are there. And you're this person that you have your family. You haven't seen them for, as frequently as you need to. So you have to reconcile that feeling, right? And I love children. So it got back to the point again. They called my phone back in Cameroon. My parents were like, what? My mom was like, it doesn't look like her. She loves kids. Like, what are you talking about? But it was, I grew very irritable, very impatient, not patient at all with them, especially the first one. The second one was just, it's just weird how things work. And I'm very direct as a child. So I would say things without realizing that it might be true, but you don't say those things, especially to a mother who has a child, you're critiquing the kid. And so I didn't have concept of that. I just didn't have concept
because
of that.
Because you were a child yourself.
Yeah, but I was mature as a child. So I felt that I had a say in things, that I could give my opinion, and that I had my place. It was completely misplaced, but that's how I grew up. You can't tell a child grow up and then ask them to be a child.
Yeah, that's confusing.
And you can't tell a grown up. Yeah, without African families do that a lot. They say, grow up, why are you still in the house? Why are you still doing this? Go find your life. And when you do it, then they go and infantilize you again. And you're like, which one is it?
Yeah.
You want me to be an adult? Give me my seat on the table, and you accept everything that goes with it, or you let me be a baby, and then when I'm really an adult, tell me go be an adult, and let me be an adult. You can't have it both ways, and that's that little just mind-boggling thing that we do, that they do a lot in African family. They don't understand, that holds us back instead of pushing us. Yeah. Because again, you're an adult. They want you to be,
because all those responsibilities, helping, going to appointments. That's a lot for a young teenager. That's because normally, in Europe, I also arrived in Europe as a teenager, and the kids, they were like, hanging out, having a good time, and not being as responsible as you seem to have been. And me too, I what you say really rings a bell. Yeah. And so we miss kind of steps. We miss steps where we don't build ourselves. We don't make those mistakes. We don't, all those things. We're there. You wake up and your day is planned. You have to do this. You have to do this. All these responsibilities, those are missed opportunities for building ourselves as people, right?
Yeah, it is. So this topic and talking about the way we grew up is very difficult from an African standpoint, because if you raise these questions, the family sees it as you're putting them in a bad light, or you don't appreciate how they raised you, or you think they're evil, which is not the case. Again, I grew up, when people ask me today, I'm probably one of the few privileged Africans who've seen the way I grew up. Like, I never lacked of anything. I lived a pretty comfortable life. I went to private schools, and then finally changed that they tried to put me into public school. It didn't go well. But I had everything. We had a house that was big enough for us. I mean, granted that we moved a lot, but I did not lack anything. Literally, I had physical things. I did not like anything. And to be fair, my aunt loved me, and I don't doubt that a second. I just think that it's just this, we're ill-equipped. Our African families are ill-equipped in a lot of ways, and I just I even started to reinforce in my head because my aunt's husband was white French, a French white man,
Yeah.
so he has a different upbringing. And I remember sometimes telling my aunt, hey, relax, just let her, give us some room to go. If I wanted to go out, I would dread asking my aunt. I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna say no, she's gonna, or I'll have some ridiculous curfew because I'm like, how am I gonna make friends? And then if I did want to make, she was like, okay, you can make friends. It was like an interview for those friends. It's like, I need to know where they live. I need to, think about from their standpoint. They're probably thinking like,
No. Yeah.
So socializing was a bit tricky, but I did make one or two friends. And I did love skateboarding. Actually helped me make friends because my aunt realized it was a hobby and I was serious about it for a while. So she was like, you know what? At least I can give you that hobby. That and painting were my two things, because painting didn't require going outside. You could stay in your room and I could let my imagination it was relaxing too. It was very therapeutic in that sense. So those are two things that she let me do. And then, but I was always home by 6. If I was late, I better have a good excuse. So
just to pause a little bit, I love the, even though it was not much freedom, but the hobbies you had, painting and skateboarding. That's so beautiful and unusual.
Yeah, it is. I really got into things like skateboarding, interest in snowboard surfing, and my first internship job when I was in high school was in a shop that sold things for surfers, skateboarders, and all that stuff. It was so much fun, but it came with its challenges. Like, how many people knew a black girl who skated in the city? Like, I even got bullied for that on the street. From like, why are you trying to do white people stuff? Why are you trying to be like white people? I was like, it's a sport. I don't like it.
Yeah, right.
It has nothing to do. White people do stuff that we do too. Why isn't it a problem?
Where is it painted on the skateboard that it's for white people? Like, seriously.
Yeah, I got literally in the streets of Toulouse got harassed by some of the teenagers looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you skateboarding? And white people didn't know what to do with me because of like, it's cool. That's really cool. But like, this is really unusual.
Yeah.
And so those are the things I lived on growing up. But I think
but it shows that you have a mind of your own, and know who you are.
I'm very stubborn.
That's good. Stubborn. It's a good trait.
But the thing I think the word is overly protective. I think my upbringing was overly protective, and when you're being raised to live in that wall, like shelter everything, just so that you don't miss and make any mistake, you end up, like you said, ill-equipped, not knowing how to act when there's no one to either push you, there's no one to either say, okay, this is wrong, to validate some of your decision, there's no one you can fall back to, because that's how you grew up. You grew up with that support, with that environment that is all closed and locked up. We didn't have and my aunt was a very reserved person. That's her personality, so it didn't help that it was just me, her, the kids, and whoever came to visit once every twice, or family. But that was it. That was our life. Our life was, you go to school, you come home. You go to school, you come home. If you had extracurricular activities, which I didn't have many, you go to those things on usually on Wednesday afternoons. I don't remember how our schedules was in France. You come home. By 6 o'clock, you're at home. I could tell myself, my schedule was wake up, prep breakfast or whatever it is we're eating, go to school, come back. And then we'll either, my aunt, they help in the kitchen, or I was the one to cook that day, prep dinner, we eat, have our family time, go do my homework, and get ready for bed, which I never did because I'm a bit hyper like that. But that was most of our routine. That was it there. That was just it there. And then you spend your time either taking care of other responsibilities or your school, or, that was just it. And then we did travel, but we traveled within our, little nucleus kind of family thing. And the word often, because my uncle or his husband, they're not together anymore, but he worked, and it was just the same cycle. So
yeah.
So I didn't know how to reconcile these things, and oh man, there were so many things that I did that I think about. I was like, yeah, that's just because I was just not understanding my world, and I guess I don't know if it was a cry for help or just me not knowing how to digest all of that. I developed spasmophilia. I never had asthma before. My aunt has asthma, but I never had asthma before. So spasmophilia is, think about it as a anxiety attack.
Oh,
To the point where you can't breathe. You can't breathe, you get dizzy. I mean, you just like, yeah. And initially they thought it was asthma. I was like, I've never had asthma in my life. I've not been diagnosed. So I was like, no. And then finally, I was told that it was spasmophilia. It could be caused by stress, anxiety, or overwork, work and stuff. So again, what do? We ignore it. They tell you relax.
yeah. Not
Well, they just
talk
say you're
about it,
tired,
right?
maybe you're overworked, you're stressed, and just relax and call it a day. And you're like, huh. As an adult, I'm like, that was a telltale sign already of me not
Yeah.
being well. But what do you want?
That's the body screaming for help for all the things that have been happening, because the thing is, all these things that happen, we accumulate them not only in our minds but also in our bodies, and at one point all the things we don't want to talk about, they come out as ailments. There are many people in our communities who start having like aches and pains everywhere. It's all those pent up emotions we don't talk about. They have to come out somehow. And it becomes biological. It becomes like this, that, and then things we don't understand. And then the body is not reacting right anymore. And most of the time, it's like accumulated emotional burden.
That's exactly, it's exactly that. But you just learn how to bottle it up, and then you blame yourself for not being this level. And it followed. The worst part is that I wish I'd found a way to understand, because it followed me to my adulthood.
That's a great point there. Just to come back to something you said, you talked about that our families don't like when we talk about these things because they feel as if we blame them. And I always say that the goal is not to blame our families. It's for us to do better as a people, as a community. And, we can still love our families and recognize that there were some shortcomings that we have to heal from, because if there's no awareness, we cannot heal from these things. You were going to
cycle too.
And repeat the cycle. We repeat the cycle. Without awareness, we repeat the cycle. Even if you don't want to do like your uncle, if you don't gain awareness, or your auntie or whoever, if you don't gain awareness of what happened, you're going to end up exactly where you didn't want to end up. So we have to know what happened, the impacts on us. And I think that's what you want to talk about right now. How it impacted you. How did this impact you?
It impacted me because I think it stopped me from using things, using my strengths to make it work in life. It stopped me from gaining confidence. Self-confidence was really a problem for me. And unfortunately, I'm somebody who, if you see me at first sight, I don't look like somebody who lacks confidence. I'm actually the reverse. I'm outgoing for the most part. I'm very open. And so people don't, when I tell, they cannot imagine that I lack that much self-confidence. So I doubt a lot. I'm still walking through that in some ways today. I understand it now, but it's hard to take all of those years of habits and just being in a certain state, even though you're aware now, even though you have to change. So, and I'm changing. I think I've made some progress, but there's still moments I have to catch myself and be like, let's take food photography. I take pictures, and it took me a while to even want to post them because I thought they weren't good enough. I just felt like, I don't, it's not good. And the fact that in our families we don't know how to appreciate our children when they do good, when they excel, when it's just like, okay, good, it's like it's expected. You could have done more. For me, it was that, if I got a 50, it's like, you could have had this. And I'm like, this was hard and I made it. Like, yes, encourage me to do more. That's where I recognize the effort that I've done. And that is the biggest thing I still struggle to do today, is that I will put in some work, and when people compliment me, I just shy away. I feel uncomfortable. I feel really uncomfortable when people compliment me on the work that I did, took the time to achieve and put out there. And I'm like, no, it's nothing. Yeah, it wasn't that difficult. Just I minimize it. And that holds you in your career. Because if you're not able to use your work and put yourself out there, guess what? The person less qualified than you is going to be like, yep, I just did one thing, but I'm so proud of my one thing. I'm showing how I did it well. That you who is able to produce 10 is just like shying away from me. They get the position, they get the advancement in life, they get the attraction, and they move forward, even though you're more qualified. And I did not know that. So I spent a chunk of my adulthood not evolving to the position that I wanted, not getting things, and I blamed it on me that I'm not good. Again, it's a loop. You didn't do something, you didn't get it, but then you blame yourself again. So yeah, yeah, it does impact, and then socially too, I was impacted by it. I did not know how to socialize. I didn't have friends really like that. So when I started, when you get into adulthood, you meet people, right? And I was super protective of myself. Again, doing what I was learned. I left Toulouse to go to Paris to get work after school and all that stuff. And I didn't talk to people. I shied away from talking to people because that was my way of protecting myself. Like, I'm in a big city. I don't know anybody. I just took my luggage, and because that was a friend was like, girl, you're saying this time you're going to find a job. She's like, I'm going to Paris without a lot of confidence. I'm going to Paris. And I was like, I think I'll go too. And I went. But then I found myself in this environment. Paris is a different beast.
Yeah, story of my life.
And I'm like, okay, I got to find a job and I need to stay somewhere. My aunt accepted. My aunt in Paris was like, yeah, you can come stay with me. Then I found a job I don't know if it's out of luck. I do have qualities. I wouldn't say out of luck, but I never used those strengths. So I saw all my friends.
It's not out of luck. It's because you're good. You're really good. It's so hard for us to accept, right? I still struggle with these things. Yeah.
And so then you sit down and you see all your friends flourish. Just flourish. Even they're struggling. I know they're struggling, but they're moving forward. They're making some sort of step, one step forward. And I'm just like, what's going on with me? Like, I'm working too, I'm trying, and nothing is happening. Yeah, nothing is happening because you're not doing nothing. You think you are, but you're doing the bare minimum. You're doing the bare minimum, And so it just led from frustration to frustration, and then I decided to leave. And I was speaking to my uncle here in the US. I was like, I don't understand. I work hard, I have good work, I have, very high work standards. I speak multiple languages. I'm well educated. I'm cultured. Like, why is this not working? And he said, well, come to the United States, we're reward you for working. And I was like, you know what, let me try it. But I still didn't fix the problem, really. I still didn't solve the problem. I thought it was because France or Paris was whatever. And I did not fix the issue. So
yeah.
I did know something was wrong. I was starting to understand that something is fundamentally wrong. And one of my best friends, God bless her heart with all her patience, it took me to lose her trust in some ways for me to understand. And what I mean lose her trust was that I did not know how friendship worked. I enjoyed her. I really loved her. But because I didn't understand friendship work, I did a lot of mistakes in our friendship. And she was very patient with that. But at some point, people just, they try to push you, drag you along to what works. But if you're there not knowing how to seize the opportunity or use it, they get tired. They just get tired. And so she got tired. She's like, you know what? I wish you the best, and hopefully our path cross again. And she's like, but I don't get it. She's like, and I kept saying, I don't get it. She's like, you would never get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's she talking about? I don't get it. But now I see what she meant. So
when did that awareness happen? When did you realize that it was not external factors that were stopping you from thriving, but something that was stopping you from connecting to your inner power?
When I started being in the rut, when I started knowing what I wanted to do, or not necessarily what I wanted to do. I had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of things that I wanted to do, but they were held back so much that I never really explored them. I didn't know how, when, who. I just think about it as you just freeze. Like I felt like I was just like, since the age of 13, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to have my own business. I grew up with somebody who was an entrepreneur, so I was in it. But I was discouraged out of it. Even to this day, my mom to this day to tell me, she feels like the biggest mistake she did was holding me back on stuff, and holding me back. Don't. So you're this person who has all these great ideas.
That's a big thing to recognize for her.
No, we talk now a lot, and slowly but surely I open up on things, and slowly but surely she's becoming more comfortable giving me her side of perspective, which is really important because that's also part of healing. Because as a child, I accused them and blamed them of things because I did not know what was pushing those decision makings, right?
Yes, because they were not explained to you that, so you made a mind of your own because you didn't know all the elements.
And anger, for me, it was mostly anger. I carried anger for such a long time that it's paralyzing. It's paralyzing, it's confusing because you're constantly mad, angry, not at people, but angry at your life, angry at your family, not understanding, and just frustrated about the whole thing.
I have a
And that even
question. Did
ended.
you feel you could open up to other people, or you felt a lot of shame about certain parts of your life and then you kept people at a distance?
So I don't know if it was more shame per se. I think I felt out of place. So I didn't share much because I felt out of place. And secondly, in my family, they raise you to never spill the beans out. It's like dirty laundry in the family, whatever it is in the family. So you also I grew up a little bit with that mentality that what is yours, keep it to yours, keep it close. You never know what people would do with it. African people. Don't tell your life out there because you know they'll use it against you and stuff. Without knowing that there's life and life. There's people with whom you can share, there's people with whom you can share. And so, people have accused me of that, and they say, we feel like we know you, but we feel like we don't really know you. And I was like, what do you mean? I talk with you, I laugh with you. And I said, just like, yeah, but you're very reserved. You're like, it's almost as though you're hiding something. I was like, I'm not hiding anything. And I genuinely felt I wasn't hiding anything. But I never really opened up like that. Or if I didn't want to talk about a subject, I'll make up something and then you'll deal with it. And just like make up something and fill in the hole, like, I was vague about stuff. Even if they were true or not, I was vague about stuff because in my mind, I thought I was protecting myself. So, and without knowing that what I was reflecting out to people was like, oh, you all are just, you can't get in my life. And I was cold. They took it the wrong way. Without understanding that was just the way, part of it is just the way I grew up. And secondly, I didn't know how. How do you share stuff, communicate to people properly? And then how do you know to who to share those things to? And so people learn those things when they're teenagers, when they're younger, because they've gone through those mistakes. They've had bad friends that have done things to them. They have friends that have been there for them. They've learned those things. I did not. I started being exposed to it as an adult. And so people could not understand that you're just grown ass girl and you don't know how. They couldn't even go that way. So
This is such an important point you're making, because that's the consequences of growing up like that and being very responsible and not, developing all these emotions and all these interactions. Because then you become an adult, you look like an adult, but then you have like emotional skills or emotional interactions of a teenager or even sometimes a child, because you didn't learn these things. Then now you have to make friends, you have to
you
know
start
how.
worrying some way.
Yeah, you have to be in a relationship and know how to be loving, and then you don't know how because no one showed you.
Oh, I mean, it affects everything in your life, and that's the worst part. We don't understand. It doesn't affect one
Yeah.
domain. I mean, my friendships, my personal relationship. I mean, I screwed up big time on all those things without even knowing that I was making a huge man. I've had relationships that were fabulous that I just messed up because I just
Sabotage. Yeah.
I didn't know what loving somebody really truly looked like, because I didn't learn. I just did not learn. I didn't make my mistake. I didn't learn from those mistakes because they were never made. So fast forward, I come to the U.S., but the U.S. is another beast. So that's what led me. But I started to do the process of understanding, right? But I didn't work on it. I just knew something was wrong. I just knew that something was wrong, and I'm probably the one, because when 1, 2, 3 things fail, you start to look at yourself a little bit. You're like, okay, this person said, you're like, okay, you start to really question, right? If you have the ability to do so, you start to question. So I understood, okay, I have to change something. But again, with what tools, how, when, you don't have those things. So I moved here, but to start. So I moved here, and the bad thing about the US is that you're quickly in the grind.
Where to start,
it was just, right? Where I was in Europe, I did have some time I could ponder, and because of life is a bit at a different pace there. Even in a big city like Paris, we have our weekends, and the job that I had there back then, you had the flexibility. But I got here, and it was just, welcome to America, you're in the grind. And as your life depends on your visa, your life depends on everything. And I was here, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna do this. By the time you lift your head to breathe, 3 years have gone by, and you don't know what you've done with those years. And you're just like grinding. And then if an issue comes up, it's just like going. So, but I still wanted to try to start my business. I started a business with my friend. Unfortunately for us, we had to stop, right before COVID started, and so that we just had to put that on the side. But I still didn't take the time to deal with me, deal with me. I was starting to really try to work on it, but still not properly. But for me, it was like, okay, first I had to make peace. I had to be at peace. And that's when I think that was the biggest one. So I was like, you know what? It is what it is. You've seen what it's cost your life. you know you have to fix some things. Put all the anger aside. You know, people have made their mistakes. We've made mistakes. Accept it, understand. You know, you can. There's some things you can control. Put it to, you know, leave it. Remove that anger. That was really great. That was liberating. But then, how do you change bad habits? How do you change how do you fix the root cause of certain things that you do? I never really worked on that one. I didn't have time to. It's the US to have cancel that stuff is going to cost you an arm and a leg. And I also had some health issues. Like I was just struggling. My stomach. It was just it was just so many things, and I was just busy going one to the next, that time just went by like that. Chances for that. That it's only recently that I'm really, really, really looking into it. And actually, I'm seeing a therapist. They're all busy, but I will stick to it no matter what she's given me. And it's so funny because I had a video call with her. I think it was yesterday or Wednesday. And she said, okay, you've got to reward yourself.
Yeah.
You know, just like if you finish a task, even though you don't know the results, but reward yourself for finishing that task. It is okay. She's like, you have to be like, yeah, I did it. I finished that task. Good for you. Good, you know, you made it. And then if you worked out well, you know what? Celebrate it. Because that's something I don't know how to do. I don't know. I don't know how to do those things. So she's like, work on those things. And so I also was told I had a ADD or HDD. Oh my God, those names are complicated. I'm just hyperactive. So I have a hyperactive problem. And that's pretty much how I've been since I was a kid. But so I'm gonna make those steps, and I think making those steps will be a game changer for me. It will be. I mean, I think it's gonna open up a lot of things that I was not able to open or channel properly. And also, the reason why I had to cancel, and I've been busy too, is like I also got diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. So that is just starting to open my eyes. Like, you know, girl, you're sitting here, living life pass you by when.
Oh, so sorry.
Life will get up to you, and you might not have the abilities that you have today, you know, because there's no cure for it. Eventually, at some point, it's going to cause a lot of issues with my kidneys. But
I'm sorry.
So I'm in a better place. I think I'm in the place where I can work on those things. But again, talking about upbringing, my dad had it. I didn't know. Nobody tells you those things. Nobody discusses those things.
I always say whenever I get to speak, I'm like, go back to your families, ask aunties, grandmas, mom, dad, ask everyone about your family story. Ask them. If they don't want to talk about it, insist. It's important first for our health to know, like, even the diseases we have in our families. Most of the time we don't know. And even knowing our stories, you know, what stories do we tell our children? Do we tell, you know, other kids who will come up in the family? We have to know these stories. Even if they are difficult, we have to find a way to be able to talk about them and process them ourselves so that we be able to share.
Yeah.
And that's freeing too, right?
Yeah, I think most of our African families have to stop being in the grind. Because that's survival too. All of this is pushed by survival. So part of it is explained by survival.
It's survival.
We come from countries where you constantly have to think about where your next meal is going to be.
Exactly.
We live in the instant a lot. We live a lot in the instant, so much so that we have some I know some people in Cameroon that were very successful, earned a lot of money that could have been enough for them to live a long life, but they didn't because it's a day-to-day mentality. Nobody saves, nobody talks, nobody plans ahead, nobody sees 10 years ahead. It's like, oh, no. First, I need to know how the week is going to end, how much money I'll make. They have the jankies, but my mom hates when I talk about those things, but it's like, janky does not move you forward. Janky is a temporary thing for a temporary moment. Yeah. It's not a bank. It's not a financial institution. It's not something that will multiply your money.
It's a short-term. It's a short-term solution.
It serves a purpose. If you have a project that you need to start and you need to start with some amount of cash, good. But let it be for that. But don't if you don't use Janky to have a long-term financial plan, there's no point of Janky. Yeah. There's just no point.
And you touched on a very important point there. Many families, even including my family, from what my mom used to tell me, were when the dad was alive, healthy and working and thriving in business, they never imagined that one day they will lack money, and they fall and they get to the point where like even having money to feed themselves properly is a problem. And that's lack of financial planning, saving, investing, and
Yeah.
that we have to change, because kids, then these patriarchs, they die and they leave kids, and then there's no one to pay for school fees, then the kids, they're even worse off than them.
But again, is that surviving, right?
That's not how it should go. Our kids should be
surviving the moment, thinking about the moment. So that unfortunately leads to decisions that affect a lot of their lives and the next generation's life. So
yeah, it's that surviving.
Again, I'm all for trying to change the narrative, to change all that, but you change by also knowing what happened, understanding the past, right?
Yes.
By having your parents explain to you why they did the things that they did.
Yes.
Why? Because you might be thinking you're changing, but in fact you're repeating what they did because you didn't know that those things didn't work. And then you're
exactly.
You're the cycle, So
yeah.
even just for that. So
yeah.
So again, that understanding those things have led me to be much more soft with my family in general, like to be less harsh, because you're harsh because you have anger, you're hard because you have frustration, you're hard because you feel like you weren't treated the way you should have been treated, right? But understanding that, I'm just like, oh, well, you know what, I get it. I'm just like, I get it. It's unfortunate that it had to happen this way, but I get it. There's a lot of components that come into where people are. I get it. So now that I know it, now I understand where and why. It's up to me not to try to fix me. Now that I understand, it would be worse if I understood those things and knew those things and I didn't try to change. Now it's a very difficult process. I won't lie. It's a very difficult process, but I have to see it in a way that I have to see it as I do have the opportunity to do it, so do it. No matter how hard it is, I might not change all, but a good percentage, I'll be in a good place. So that's the goal. The goal is for that. And I wish that I'm happy to see that more African kids doing that work.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's still a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think it's still a lot. I think a lot of us are still struggling dealing with the concept of that kind of living. And what makes it worse is that we're not in Cameroon or any other African country. If we're back home, this would be okay. But we're living in societies that have different way of functioning, different systems, and we're bringing that baggage in there. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. But thank you so much. I congratulate you for embarking on this journey, this healing journey. I always say it's a lifelong journey. At some points we do more healing, some points more living, and then we need more healing at another point. But yeah, I think awareness is privilege, and you're aware of the work you have to do. So I'm very happy for you. And can you tell our listeners where they can find you online?
It's a complicated one to pronounce, but I didn't have any options on Instagram to pronounce it different. So it's L'Atelier DC. So it's if you speak French, you understand. But for those who don't speak French, it's LATIER DC. So you can find me on Instagram. The website will be coming up soon. But I'm mostly present for now just on Instagram.
So any last word?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me and discussing this. And I just hope that we find it in us, especially our generation, to try to understand our backgrounds, try to understand where we come from so that we can do better and better ourselves as well. So, and that's all I wish for. We deserve it. Our parents deserve it. So that would be it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And L'Atelier DC, I love your photos. You're a great photographer.
Yeah. Thank you.